Hello and welcome to the third episode of Books and Cats and Books and Cats and Books and Cats. So what we're talking about today is The Simple Wild and Credence. And I will say that these have been on my list for schmonths and schmonths and schmonths. So The Simple Wild takes place in Alaska. It takes place in Bangor, Alaska, actually. It's like this city girl. I'm just kidding, that was so silly. This city girl goes to visit her dad in this like small island off the coast of like Alaska, and she goes to visit him, and it's just like really a shock to her. Like, it's very much a culture shock. It's very much like her learning to like anything that comes in has to be shipped in on these tiny like 1 to 2 seater planes. Like, anybody who needs medical attention like on the surrounding islands literally has to have one of these pilots. So it's all this like romance story. It starts out with her dad and her mom, and then I was like kind of confused when I first read that, but that's the prologue. It's her mom and her dad, and they're like separating, and it's not a spoiler because it happens in the prologue. They separate in the prologue, and then she goes and lives in city life, and it's actually in Canada. And then her dad stays there, and she never really has like a relationship with her dad. He actually still lives in Alaska. He lives in Alaska his whole life, and they don't really have a relationship, but she's really close with her mom. So she's got a mom, a stepdad, and her dad, and she comes because she hears her dad is sick. So she's spending this time getting to know her dad, but she's also getting to know this guy who flew her in on this plane. And it's very much like a love-hate relationship. I love those. It was so enemies to lovers. It was visceral. Like, I just wanted them to fight a little bit more. You know what I mean? I was just like, rah. It was just so many good feelings about hating and then loving. And anyway, so that's like kind of the basis of that. Whereas Credence is super drastically different, but also family ties is kind of like the main underlying theme. So her parents die, and she gets like basically offered to live with her dad's stepbrother, not half brother, very important distinction, stepbrother, and his 2 sons, adult sons. She's also an adult, okay? I just gotta clarify that as well. I have to clarify that because this is a story. This book is about her and her step uncle and her step cousins as well. The Simple Wild I'm sorry, I had to reboot there for a second. I didn't think I could talk properly. The Simple Wild, all romance, no smut. Credence, all smut, no romance. Very drastically different, and I didn't know that when I was reading them. I thought they were both going to be both. Let me tell you, that was a little bit of a shock for me. Also, it was a shock that she ends up sleeping with all 3 of her step uncle, step cousin, and step cousin. The Simple Wild, I don't have like any notes on how the story goes, to be honest. No notes. Loved it. Excellent execution. She's beautiful. It's like gorgeous. When she like, there's one point where, this is a spoiler, but it's very funny. She's like falls asleep, and she shaves off his beard. Okay? No notes. Exactly what I would do to my enemy that I like also have a thing for. If I was attracted to this guy who like I also like viscerally hate, I would so shave off his beard. Are you kidding me? I would do that. Okay, let's be real. She trimmed it, but it was like woolly mammoth beard, and she made it like sexy guy beard. Okay, and Google those. I'm sure they exist. My sister actually works seasonal jobs in Alaska, and so I read this book, and I was like, this is so cool. This is what does all the time. And she like did like salmon cannery camps and stuff in Alaska, and now she's in Denali, and she'll always send us like videos of these moose like outside her little cabin. Her cabin doesn't have a bathroom. She's got to walk all the way like a mile in order to get to the bathroom, and if a moose is outside of her door, she can't go to the bathroom. And now she's got her dog and her cat in the cabin with her, and the dog is always like, that's a moose. And I just think it's so funny because they'll sit out on the board anyway. So it's just like really was like, I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. I'm reading what my sister's life is sort of like, minus the romance novel part of it. So I thought that was really cool. And so I also made my sister send me videos that my lovely editor, Brian, is going to edit in. moving on to Credence, I actually read the paperback book version because I went over to my friend's house, Zoe, and she was like, oh my god, I was like, oh my god, Credence, I've been wanting to read that. She's like, yeah, you gotta read it, so just take this copy right now and you have to tell me everything that you think. So I started reading this book in a wine bar, and I was like sitting there reading by myself, and I was like, oh, this is kind of hard to get into, like yada yada yada. And then she started sleeping with her step uncle, and I was like, okay, now I'm invested. There were some really like profound lines in this book where like because the female main character, trigger warning, is just like in a really bad mental place. Like her parents were very emotionally abusive towards her and like neglectful for her entire life. So even though they had like a lot of money, she didn't get any attention, and so she's just not used to having people care. And there's one step cousin who doesn't speak. He doesn't speak at all. He hasn't since he was a child because of a traumatic experience that happened. So he expressed himself like a lot non-verbally, and of course she's not used to any kind of care or anything like that. And then we've got the one step cousin who like is willing to give her that kind of affection, but she's, you know, she's never really into him the way that she is Caleb, the guy who doesn't speak. And then her step uncle Jake, there's like so many of them that I have to like give you the names. But her step uncle Jake shows affection and care in like different forms of word. He's just like a little bit more bossy, like he wants you to know he's there, and there's like structure. So she's receiving different variations of like treatment that she doesn't necessarily know how to deal with. So a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it really starts out slow and then builds into it. The thing that I felt like I was missing was there's a lot of great smut. There's so much great smut. It's really good smut. Really good smut. Okay? However, spoiler alert, she ends up with Caleb. And along the lines, like, you're not really seeing this relationship building between them. It's just very nonverbal, but the nonverbal isn't also happening on the page. It's like their relationship is building, but we're just not being told. And I'm like, okay. And then they do get together because his brother says, like Noah says, oh, like, we all know that Caleb's in love with you. And I'm like, we did not all know that. I did not know that. I was not aware. Personally, if anything, I thought Jake was in love with her. Like, it's just like, it felt like there were some pieces that were missing. I loved it. Don't get me wrong. But I was just like, I could have used a few more stepping stones. And I'm usually really good at reading between the lines, but I was like, oh, we did not all know that. That was information I was not privy to, unfortunately. I knew they all had a thing for her, and I knew that he, like, sort of felt a certain way, like this and that, but it was never really, like, explicit to me that was what was going on, and she was going to end up with him and only him. I mean, then I did get a happily ever after epilogue, so I do appreciate that. I've got to give that respect. But it just, I felt like I was missing a few pieces. Whereas for this, I felt like there was so much goodness. It's just, they were both so good. I think I would have loved to have had some smut in The Simple Wild, but I also would have liked a little bit more romance and Credence, but they were both so good. Regardless, I do have to give kudos to BookTok and to Bookstagram for these, because those are so incredible. I felt like because both are set in such like remote areas, like this takes place in Bangor, Alaska, this takes place in, oh my god, I can't remember where exactly specifically it is, but it's like a very remote house separated even from the town. Like when it's a major plot point is like whenever the snow falls, they can't get to town and town can't get to them. They're both very remote locations, so it's like isolated experiences, which is really fun because I'm in the city right now, and so I am not getting any isolated experiences. It was very entertaining for me to like go through. I was reading Credence while at work all the time, and by work I meant my restaurant job. So I'm standing in this restaurant reading this book, and customers keep coming up to me going, oh, awesome, you're reading. They always do it. They're like, oh, a book girl. Like, people actually read these days. And I'm like, yes, thank you, I am quite literate. I do know how to read. And I read in places as well because I'm a person. And so I'm like reading this book, and they're like, what's it about? And in my head, I'm like, incest, but not. Incest, but not. And they're all just like, what's it about? What's it about? Oh, like, is it like a sci-fi book? Is it like a memoir? And I'm like, oh, it's a romance novel. It's a romance novel. And they're like, oh my God, what kind of romance? And I'm like, oh my God, is that your pizza? Let me go grab that for you. Because no way am I telling anybody except for my manager and all of my coworkers that I'm reading a book where the lead ends up sleeping with not only her step uncle, but also her 2 step cousins. I do feel like both are a 5-star and a 5-star. You know how I have my rating scale? It's either no star, 1 star, or 5-star. They're both 5 stars. Let's be real. They were both incredible. The Simple Wild and Credence. So they were both so good. Let's see what I'm about to read next. I will also take recommendations. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Books and Cats Official. Follow us on YouTube/subscribe, because that is apparently the correct lingo, at booksandcatsofficial.com. Don't forget to comment the book that I should be reading next, because remember, I will read any book that you recommend to me, whether I like it or not. And well, we have a lot more content up for you guys so far. We're gonna have some more fun stuff, some tidbits that you're probably gonna freak out when you see, not about these books, but instead about the cats. So just stay tuned on YouTube, stay tuned on Instagram, and we will see you soon. I'm Samantha Lammer, and this is Books and Cats. Books and Cats and Books and Cats and Books and Cats and Books and Cats. And we look forward to seeing you next episode.